What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast presented by Breckenridge Brewery, including the Colorado Avalanche, Avalanche Amber Ale, which is the unofficial beer of cool days, mostly autumn, but I would say even a little bit this pre-spring that we're in right now. It's my official take. Yeah, I'm telling you, a nice like red or brown ale in the spring or in the summer, it's a little bit cool.
Okay.
There's nothing better in life.
All right.
Guys, we have a great show for you today. I'm telling you, man.
Nothing better in
Well, all right. There's few things better in life. We have a good discussion for you guys today. I love Denver Sports Podcast. I like this one when we get a chance to get together with people from different backgrounds, covering different leagues, different teams, and talking about some crossover topics. So today we're going to talk about the Denver Nuggets. We're going to do that in segment 1 and where they're at and their aiming to get a championship. We're going to talk about the Colorado Avalanche, who, despite last night's loss, have been on sort of a heater. Yeah, forget about it. Have been on a little bit of a heater.
Forget about it.
And then we're going to end the show with a longer discussion talking about how the NBA and the NHL market themselves, because I think they're both in the same boat in that they're not the top product. That's the NFL. And are they growing? That's one of the questions that we're going to ask. To help me do that, I've got the great AJ Haefele, who you know from covering DNVR Avalanche. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. I always like to talk about other sports other than hockey.
Take a little break from hockey for a second.
Yeah, I don't like being pigeonholed as a hockey guy. I'm one
How
of
do
the.
you want to be pigeonholed?
As
As a pigeon guy?
yeah.
Okay.
Count me as team pigeon.
You and Mike Tyson?
Yeah.
I love that about you and Mike Tyson.
Also,
we have a lot in common.
I would say.
Also, Boris Stankovic. Shouts to all of our Serbian
Shouts.
followers over there. Also, a
Shouts.
big pigeon guy. And then over there, I got D-Line, who's an expert on many things, but also nothing.
Oh, yeah. I'm like a Swiss Army knife with no blades. I'm ready. I'm an expert on many subjects, but not actually an expert on any subjects. I'm happy to be here to give my expertise on the Denver Nuggets because no one else on this panel would be able to do so.
But you need to open up a bottle of wine or file your nails under pressure. He's your guy.
Oh, no question.
He's got both of those products here.
Or if you need a tiny little magnifying glass.
I like a Swiss Army knife.
Everybody does.
Didn't know we'd be talking about that. Let's talk about the Nuggets, though, guys. And AJ, we talked, I don't know what it was, probably 2 months ago, and I was like, are you buying into the Nuggets quite yet? You weren't there. You put a tweet out maybe a month ago that was like, you know what, I'm starting to buy in. It was right when the Nuggets were on a 9-game win streak, so I think it was like at the...
It was easy.
It was like at the peak.
The most cowardice time to do.
But now, I'm really curious now, because there's only 20 games to go. It looks like Denver's going to be the number 1 seed. Like, where are you at in your... what you're sensing with this team? Are they a championship, a true contender?
I think the things that made me feel better during that win streak was that it wasn't like it was the A game every night and they were just blowing people out, and they're for me, I think one of the really important lessons that we learned covering the Avalanche from their growth from batty to playoff team to now they're a legit cup contender, and then the difference between the team that couldn't get it done and the one that did. It was really one of our biggest lessons that we learned was teams have to be comfortable in every situation imaginable and winning games with their A, B, and C games. I mean, just totally. You just have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
You've got to know how to play. When you're up by 20, you've got to know how to play when you're down by 20, and everything in between. When you're in a more physical defensive slugfest, when neither team is shooting well, what do the Nuggets look like? And I think that's the style of game that makes me most nervous about the Nuggets, because I think if they are playing what you would think of as modern basketball, getting up and down, shooting threes, letting Jokic kind of just dictate games, they're absolutely a championship contender. There's no denying. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could generously call him a top 3 player in the NBA, because I really don't want to fight anybody about it. But like
top players and stuff anyway. We'll get to this later on in the show, but like that's not an insult, and it is an insult now, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's a team sport.
Yeah. It's true.
I would bet if you went back in the NBA's like 60, 70 year history and said, when was there a no arguments made, number one player in the year, it would be easily less than half of the years. But I think in people's mind, it's like there always has to be. If not, whoever it's supposed to be is a fraud or something. And it's like, no, most of the time, Magic or Larry, there's an argument. We can make it, like Kobe, Tim Duncan, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's funny for me to think about, like, we've become so comfortable in the Jokic timeline.
Yeah.
That the concept, even 5 years ago, that the Nuggets would have a top 3 player in the NBA was like,
Oh, bro.
it was totally foreign. Like, okay, so what happened in the lottery? Like,
It is still foreign. Like Serbia.
And it's still really, I don't know. There are days where I wake up and I'm like, I just watched Cale McCarr have a 4-point night tonight. And tonight I'm going to watch Nikola Jokic do something that only Wilt Chamberlain has ever done. And you're just like, okay.
Not since Wilt.
Like, this is just life now, right? Like,
you know what's funny? I was arguing with some friends, some other
Former
writers.
friends.
Oh no, I was arguing.
Of course.
I was arguing with some other writers from around, around the league, and they're talking about how silly this like Jokic and the third MVP of this or that. And I told them, like, guys, look, all I'm going to tell you is for 8 years I've been having the same argument. It has taken different forms, but it used to be Jokic is nowhere close to as good as Jahlil Okafor, and it's somehow slowly moved to Jokic is nowhere good enough to be a 3-time MVP, but it's the same argument, and I'm like, I just keep eating dubs slowly. Like, I just slowly keep doing this thing where it's so absurd, but...
It's the best way to eat dubs. If you eat too many dubs too quickly, you get a cramp.
But it is the same. I'm telling you, like, you could almost make a timeline of Jokic conversation, and it really is. He's not as good as, Okafor is one of the very first ones, Porzingis, Town,
Are we sure he's better
whatever it
than
is.
Okafor?
And you just keep going, and then you're like, here's not as good as the other 3-time MVPs. And it's like, yeah, man, you extrapolate this another 4 years, and it's actually, he's nowhere near as good as Michael Jordan.
he's the second best player to ever win 5 MVPs in a career.
It's the worst three-peat we've ever seen.
This was like a pretty foundational part of the early DNVR Nuggets podcast was our hot box and hot takes, where after games, Vote and Adam and whenever I could poke in, would just give our the hottest, most ridiculous pie in the sky takes we could give, and we sold him short. I was like, guys, I'm like, bro. In my mind, in this dream I've had, Jokic could be top 3 MVP, top 3. And it's just like everything happens, and I'm like, bro, I don't know. He's gonna own the league. He's gonna win. I don't know what to even look towards next. Like, the craziest thing about Jokic is that it's not just the slow burn of acceptance. Like, he's actually getting better.
Yeah.
He's actually rising to that level of the defense that we were giving him. It's like, we're not crazy. I mean, we, at a certain point, it's possible we were ahead of the curve a little bit just because maybe he's our guy. But now, I mean, I don't feel weird about it at all. There are some times when you're like, oh man, who was a good draft pick? Drew Lock. Now that guy can throw the ball. And then you look back, you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Jokic, you're like, bro, why weren't they listening to us? Why weren't they listening to us?
Weirdly, in some ways, we were more wrong about Jokic than we were Drew Lock, just in the other direction.
Yes.
It's way better than we...
way undersold
we
him,
way
which is
undersold
unreal.
him. But getting back to the Nuggets as a team here, they're number one. They're in a weird place because they're number one in the West, and now there's the question of, do you gun for the number 1 overall seed? What is it that the Nuggets have to accomplish in this part? And I think tomorrow night's game, they play the Memphis Grizzlies, who are the number 2 seed in the West. If they win that one, they pretty much lock up their last 19 games. They can kind of do what they want with those last 19 games, kind of like the Avs last year, right? I mean, they had such a good foothold.
Man, that was such a bad time.
What?
The Avs, remember the Avs community during that time when they were so far ahead.
Oh,
And
no.
they were dropping games, and everyone's like, Bednar doesn't have what it takes to lead a championship squad. And everyone was mad. And you guys just had to be like, would you just wait till the playoffs, guys?
Is this how it went?
Yes.
So they clinched. It was actually our first takeover night. They beat Carolina. They blow out Carolina. They clinch the number 1 seed in the West and the division title on the same night.
How many games to go?
I don't know. It was 12, 13.
Wow.
It was,
Okay. Yeah.
Too many.
They were
Too
far
many.
ahead,
Too
man.
many. Yeah.
And then their last 10 games, they went 4-5-1, as they were sitting guys. The guys clearly just didn't care. They came to Winnipeg twice when I was up there. And I remember going to morning skate for one of those games, and I walked around and I was like, this is the lowest energy morning skate I have ever been at. They do not care one single iota about these games. And they didn't need to.
This is so great because there's a very good chance this is going to happen to Denver.
Yes,
and so they limped into the playoffs because they rested.
Yeah.
And then what happened in the first round?
Well, and so as a continuation of that same story, I was at morning skate of round one against Nashville, and I went to both Colorado and Nashville's morning skate. And Colorado's, they played faster during practice that morning than Nashville did during any of the 4 games that the Avs were blowing them out. And Nashville was just happy to be there. Right. They were excited. Hey, cool, maybe something crazy can happen.
Right.
You know, we have injury problems, or we're going against the Avs. It was never close.
I just remember that too. Like, people were just like,
apocalyptic.
They just think they have a switch they can turn on. That's not how it works in the NHL.
Championship contenders don't act this way.
Meanwhile, they had a switch. They lost 3 games the entire playoffs.
Yeah, and also game one wasn't game one not just a win, but wasn't it like 7-0 or something like that? Wasn't it like an enormous win?
Yeah, they scored 3 goals in the first 9 minutes.
Yeah,
they set an NHL record because they scored an even strength goal, a power play goal, and a shorthanded goal in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Right,
it set a postseason NHL record.
And that's because I just remember that game. You watch the Avs and you're like, my God, they're so much faster and more skilled. Like at every position and nonstop. It wasn't like, oh, they had a fast second. It was just like they're on turbo mode and Nashville's on slow mode.
They trailed 1 time in that 4-game series, and it was for about 90 seconds in game 4.
Those were tough times.
They got down 3-2 in the third period. Scored 2 goals in the next 4 minutes, and that was it. It was curtains.
Now, here's one difference between...
They flipped the switch, truly. They did.
Yes, they had a switch.
Yeah,
all championship teams do.
Well, first of all, a couple differences here. One, the Avs, I mean, in the middle of the season, I don't remember what the stretch was from when they started winning to right before they shut it down, but they won for 3 straight months without losing, basically. I mean, a loss was rare. So you knew that their peak...
It was more like 5
months.
So they went 4-5-1 in the first 10 games, and then they went 4-5-1 at the tail end of it.
Okay.
And in that middle time, I don't remember how many losses. I think it was like 9 losses during the middle.
So that's
62 games.
So the difference there, though, that's the difference is that when the Avs flipped a switch or got ready for the postseason or whatever, it was a return to a dominant level of play that I don't think the Nuggets have reached yet.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's unfair to continue to compare that Avalanche team.
Yeah.
Because that team was one of the most wire-to-wire dominant champions of the last 25 years in the NHL.
Yeah.
They lost 4 games in the postseason. It should have been probably 2.
So stupid. They were very dominant. And yet they still got to a point where I was nervous, like not super nervous, but I mean, they did have one series that kind of pushed them a little bit. And I was like, all right, this is, it's getting a little bit touchy here, but
the Stanley Cup final was close.
Yeah. And you meet a team that's been there and everything else. And it's like, all right, this is a team that has resolve. But in the end, when they overcame it, then you were like, well, now they got over a hump. But bringing this back to Denver, there's 20 games to go. What do you need to see from them in these 20 games?
To be honest with you, I don't think there is anything that they can do in the last 20 games that will make me feel like they are ready for that moment, because there's just nothing in the regular season left for them to prove.
I want to know about talk to me about goaltender. This is what I know this to be the most uncertain.
Well, we're going to get to Avs in segment 2.
Okay.
There. I'm more asking him to use that to talk about the Nuggets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried. I worry about all non-Jokic minutes, right? I mean, anybody that watches the Nuggets is like, here we go. Like, you just gear up. You know that it's coming, that he leaves the game. And all of a sudden, it's funny because we talk about how the supporting cast around him is so good, and they all fill these perfect roles and this and that. And then it's like the adult leaves and the children just go nuts. And it's the inmates running the asylum kind of thing. it's crazy to watch how stark a contrast it is between when he's in the game and he's running it. And I think that's where you have the MVP case, and that's where it shows what a special player he is because just his presence in the game changes how the game gets played.
The bench is, I think every team is nervous about their bench going into a playoff.
Because they're all bench players.
Because they're all bench players, and you're like, man, these guys aren't as good. And Denver, I think, to more of an extreme than most, mainly because they play their starters together more than most teams, but maybe feels that. I don't know if that's the biggest thing. I still look at, Jokic might be a 3-time MVP. He might win it. I don't really care to talk about that. I think it's boring. I'm over it.
It is.
But I'm more interested in, like, what does he have to do? Because I think he's going to be carrying a lot of pressure. You could make a case that he's carrying more pressure into this playoffs than any player in the NBA. And I think he's up for it. I know he's talented enough. But what do you think you need to see from him between now and whenever this thing ends for, that you'll be sold?
I think if he just, and I'm not super concerned about him because I think he meets the moment just fine. He's unflappable. That's not a guy that...
It's already there.
Or when it comes to Jokic, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about anything regarding his ability to show up in the postseason. How does he handle whatever matchup he ends up in? Who cares? He's Nikola Jokic. How do they handle him? Is way more of an important question than how he handles them.
Yeah.
He's going to handle them like he handles everybody. He's just going to plow right through it.
What about for you, Eric? Is there anything that you would like to see in these last 20 games that will make you more confident in Jokic?
Oh, I mean, no. Give me a break. I mean, Jokic is...
That's interesting to me.
I mean, no. I mean, I saw everything I needed to see out of Nikola Jokic before the season started. Truly, like
yeah,
we've referenced this more than one time, but that game we went to in Serbia against Greece, Jokic looks so monstrous, like so unstoppable, so determined, so focused in a way that you can't really coax out of him during like a regular season matchup. And it was against Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it was for something that was meaningful to him, like national pride, the same thing that Giannis was playing for. So both of them were very motivated. They both had incredible games, but Jokic had the better one. And Jokic did what was needed at the right time. I mean, there's just nothing I need to see out of Jokic. Like, it's all the question for the Nuggets forevermore will just be, what can they do when he's not on the floor? How much rest can we get Nikola Jokic, even though he is truly the Iron Man of the NBA? We've seen him play a literal hour on the court. We watched him play 3 overtimes and only rest for something like 3 minutes in that entire game against Portland, and they lost those 3 minutes by 8 points. So like that, it's now like, okay, can Thomas Bryant spell Jokic enough so that he has enough in the tank? Can Jamal Murray rise to the occasion that we saw and rise to the level we saw in the bubble in a hostile environment with fans in the building? Can Michael Porter Jr. rise above the sort of the soft player that gets targeted on defense? All of these things, all of these like negative things that have surrounded a lot of these players. Like, is it time to actually fully move past all of that? Like we've seen in the regular season, I've seen, since early on in the season, I'm like, man, I've seen enough. Like, just get us to the goddamn playoffs.
I want to see quiet, or I won't call it quiet. I want to see controlled rage from him. And we've been talking about this on the Nugget show, but I think some of the narrative, he's the most polarizing player in the NBA for a wide variety of weird reasons. Everything in the NBA is a proxy war for something else, and unfortunately Jokic is a proxy war for like a million different things: race, xenophobia, analytics, like all these like weird things he somehow becomes a symbol for. But I think he's starting to show signs of not cracking, but signs of like, yeah, I hear all this, and I like just like taking notes. That meme of Ryan from The Office taking notes. I think there's a little there, but Jokic has lost his temper a few times in playoff series in a way where that has gone the wrong way, where it's like, he got thrown out of the Suns game at the end there, and this. Well,
that was in the 4th game,
and that's why it was the series was over. But I'm saying, if he got thrown out there, it tells you that was probably swelling in him before it erupted. I want to see that rage, but in a controlled oh no. And maybe it doesn't happen, to your point. Maybe we don't see it till game 1 of the first round of the playoffs. It's entirely possible. But that to me is it's going to be required for me to fully buy in for the Nuggets is when I go, oh no, he's on a mission. He's not just a good player. He's not just going to see what happens. We'll go out there and we'll see how a series goes. If it's like, no, man, that is a man that is like knows this is everything to him and it's on the line. And I honestly think that is coming, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, there were a couple of moments during the Cup run last year where you saw Cale Makar unleash like the crazy.
Yeah. I 100% think we did,
and you could see him embrace his inner Joker, like the villain, not Jokic. Right. Like where you were like, oh, he's got a little chaos demon in him. You know, like he wants this. And I think when he started smiling his way through the domination of his opponents. That was when it was like. Good luck, everybody. No. And I would love to see a moment from Jokic like that where, maybe he roars at somebody. Maybe he, shows a little bit of enthusiasm, shows a little bit of life. Because it's one thing to be the cool guy and to just, caring is not cool. And it's always cold for, you to make an amazing play in a clutch moment and to just like strut your way back to the bench or down the floor or whatever.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to see one of those moments where you're like, you can feel how important it is.
Right.
And because I think that has a visceral impact in head-to-head matchups.
Right.
Everybody involved in those games is human.
Right.
And I think if they see the best
Except
player,
Jokic.
like I think if they see the best player acting like that, that's the kind of thing, you see how important it is. It could send that message of like, oh boy, this guy's not losing. Like this is the best player in the world, and he's about to elevate to a level we've never seen from him before. He is going to do something absolutely special. We can't stop this.
I can't wait to see it. We're 6 weeks away from the start of it all. This episode is brought to you by Illegal Pete's. This March Madness, donate by drinking.
Oh man.
Isn't that a great donation? It's easy as that.
Donated to my
Illegal Pete's is teaming up with Tito's and Denver Youth on a record program to help raise money for the future musicians of Colorado. Youth on Record provides underprivileged children in the Denver community with music-based strengths and skills that will give them the platform they need to accomplish their dreams. This is a really cool thing, man. Music is great. Sports, music, two of the best things in life.
This is what separates, like when you have an evolved, elevated culture is when you move beyond simple survival and you start to make art.
Vodka for kids.
This is
vodka for kids. That's the galaxy brain civilization.
Tito's for
on
niños.
Simple art.
For the entire month of March, Illegal Pete's will be donating $1 to Youth on Record for every vodka fresh press sold. Stop by one of Illegal Pete's 10 Colorado locations, order a Tito's Fresh Press, and know that your money is going to support Colorado's next big star. Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer.
I prefer the buddies.
I like the beer personally.
Oh, that's true. I think you like the burritos.
Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays, the place that sells rose-colored glasses.
Unbelievable. Adam made the oldest man joke of all time last night.
I'm a dad.
And he was like, all, guys, we just went on a whole tangent about how stoked we were on the Nuggets. And he was like, guys, Shady Rays sells a lot of different colored lenses. They've got polarized, black, rose-colored, and I was like, and then I had to explain it to all the children. On nobody reacted.
Everybody thought it was the funniest. People in the chat were laughing so hard. Kick off the new year with new gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered. From the sun to the slopes, premium polarized shades, customizable goggles, and so much more. I have not one, not two, 4 pairs of Shady Rays glasses.
What happened to 3?
Well, I skipped right over 3 and went to 4. Actually, I have 2 and my wife has 2 pairs. If you don't, here's what I love. You don't love them? Exchange them for a new pair.
Yeah,
you get them broken? Guess what? They got the warranty. They're going to send you a new one. And then here I love. You lost them? Doesn't matter.
Those lenses aren't rosy enough for you?
This is some great ones. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the new year. Go to shadyrays.com, use promo code DNVR, or visit them in-store at Park Meadows Mall, where as a young Adam Mares during the summer, I would be dropped off. And that was my daycare.
From that mall?
I would
That's
just hang
unbelievable.
out at Park Meadows Mall for 7 hours. Go there, get 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shade's rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. All right, let's talk about the Avs. So they lost last night, and you went like this. Is this actually? Here's where I want to start. Based on your answer to this one, Is the hangover real? Has this year, where does it rate amongst like the most fun Avalanche seasons? Is it really low?
Yeah, this has been an awful season. And it has nothing to do with really the hangover. Way more to do with the fact that the injuries just never stopped.
Oh, yeah.
They still haven't.
Yeah.
So when you think about the fact that the roster that the Avalanche spent to the cap on has played 0 seconds together this season, and they're still where they are. It's why I'm not super concerned about them as the best team in the West, but it has been frustrating to go through.
Yeah.
I frequently compare it to crawling through a field of broken glass.
Oh, dope. But at least you have a Stanley Cup on your back.
I do.
I mean how much does that help?
It
Man, can't wait to win a championship with these Nuggets.
No,
Eric.
so it
sounds great.
It takes the pressure off, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
that's-
Because
that's
last
big.
year every loss was, oh my God, they're gonna waste this core.
Right.
They're never gonna get it. They're gonna have Cale Makar and they're never gonna win anything with him.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they've made it count. They're in the history books forever. They walk the walk of champions for the rest of their lives. There's no flags fly forever.
They probably some of them watch.
That's it. Now anything that they do, any championships they ever get from here on out, builds towards a dynastic type of era.
Hell yeah,
But is there any part of you
not
that
towards a hey, we made this count. This is worth
is there
it.
any part of you that misses that anxiety though, or not at all?
Not one single bit.
All right.
No, because and you guys will feel this a year from now.
I hope so.
Where you guys will feel this a year from now, where
Wait,
you're like,
you mean
look, there's
broken glass part?
probably.
Okay.
I can't wait for that sweet broken glass of a championship hangover.
There's just nothing quite like knowing that even on the worst day, you're like,
God damn it.
it's all good. Like it just changes that perspective and
I'll feel like I'll be a better person. I'll be a better analyst, but definitely a better person
Oh,
without
I'll be
the stress
way
of like
worse person.
the darkest
Dude,
timeline.
I will turn into the worst version of a Nuggets fan.
Yeah.
I will be a Lakers
You're
fan
gonna turn
times
into
a
a Cubs fan. Yeah.
Yes!
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll be like, who can we pick up this year? Let's see, probably LeBron, get a little AD. We'll probably sign those guys. That's me.
And you'll have the most fun you've ever had.
Oh, well, I'm definitely all
I'm
for
on
that.
board for that part of it for sure.
No, honestly, I didn't care one iota about last night's game. It's against an Eastern Conference team. It doesn't matter. I care a lot about the game on Saturday. They just have more important things on their mind. The deadline is tomorrow. They have Dallas, who they're competing with for the division title, and the top seed out west.
Is it still a statement game?
Totally, yeah, absolutely. Because you want to let everybody know. You want to put all those teams down.
Right.
Yep.
You want to be like, oh, we don't have Cale Makar and we still beat you. Oh, we don't have Gabe Landeskog hasn't played one game for us this season, and you guys still can't keep up with us in the regulars. We gave you 50 games
Right.
to get your shit together and separate and try and get out away from us, and you couldn't handle that.
Oh, my God.
Why are you going to handle a best of 7 against us?
That's what's at stake.
That there's just no.
Those are the messages that you get to
Yeah,
send.
the Avs
them,
are the Avs are sending the message to the entire Western Conference right now over the last month and a half that the entire West had a head start. The Avs gave them a head start, and the Avs are rounding into form, getting healthy, and figuring it out at the worst possible time for everybody else.
Hell yeah.
What's the national narrative? Is this the national narrative
It is
of like
it's the East. So the East has
a lot of good teams?
well in the midst right now. In the midst of what has been a historic week leading up to the trade deadline, it's been the most trades that they've ever seen. It's been first round picks are all over the place. Like it has been absolute. All hell has broken loose in the NHL. It feels like the NBA.
Whoa.
Like seismic shifts have been happening.
Is it a trend, you think, or just a special year?
It's just a special year because everybody feels like they've got a shot.
Okay.
I don't know why they feel that way because the Avalanche exist, but it's all good. Let them
I
feel
want to be
this
AJ
way.
so bad.
I know.
I want to be this. This is what I want to be.
Dude, the Smugglelanche have
I
been
know,
skating.
Smugglelanche
So
are all over.
are
We
the
can't
Avs-
even say certain
No,
words.
we
We're
can't,
so shook.
dude. So are the Avs done training? Are we?
I
done?
don't think so, but everybody else should hope so.
Okay. Well,
Because
like,
if the Avs decide to take it seriously, use the last prime assets that they have left in the cupboard to go and get better, then repeating.
Why
What would
wouldn't
you,
they?
Yeah, what would you address?
The biggest, well, they need a 2C. They need a second line center. And people keep asking me why, because JT Compher, but the most consistent
not
trend
Kadri.
between the most consistent trend between Stanley Cup champions is center depth. And right now, Colorado's isn't good enough.
I mean,
It just isn't. Everything else about them is ready to go.
Nazem Kadri proved pretty important last year, I would say.
He was. Yeah.
Interesting. And then the question I jumped the gun on earlier, apparently. Talk to me about goaltending for the Colorado Avalanche.
Well, so everybody's in wait and see mode on Alexander Georgiev because postseason success defines a goaltender's legacy in the NHL.
yeah.
Kind of like winning a title defines an MVP's legacy, apparently. But
It kind of does. I'll push back though. It kind of does. It's important.
okay, cool.
The championships are important. We have to maintain it. I mean,
Sure.
I want it. I'm with AJ.
They don't matter.
F the haters, dude. Who cares?
It's mostly
haters.
just like there's an MVP for a regular season. There's an MVP for a
Of course,
finals,
of course,
you know,
of course.
Those are separate things. They're awarded separate. How many?
But there is a category of MVPs to never win it, and it's a bummer of a category. It's like a little bit of a
Well,
bummer.
sure, but there's also every sport has the most games played without a championship on.
Right.
You never want to be on any list that involves without a championship.
Of course.
That's a bad list.
That's my only point I'm
and that's
making.
and that's like it, you know. And anyway, Georgiev is a. We'll see. I'm all in on him being very, very, very good. I think he's much better than Darcy Kemper last year.
Wow.
And I really liked Darcy Kemper.
He was good.
But I think the Avs, I've said this all year, the Avs were going to be a worse team going into the postseason, but they're going to have better goaltending once they get there.
Okay.
Once they get into the playoffs, because the Avs goaltending in the playoffs last year just wasn't very good. It was good in the couple of games where they were really close and they
Right.
really needed it. But overall, it was not. It was the worst goaltending from a Stanley Cup champion in like 30 years.
It was the worst goaltending of an absolutely dominant team that couldn't lose any games.
Right. Like imagine Darcy Kemper's eye doesn't get gouged in game 3 in Nashville and he's healthy.
Right.
And he plays to the level that he did in the regular season.
Right.
The Avs legitimately might not have lost a game in the postseason. Like
I think it's good for you guys, frankly, that he did get hurt and you got a little bit of. I actually have a bigger question, though, a much more pressing question. I think it's a question a lot of people are wanting to know, particularly on DNVR. Why do I see Rudo without a shirt every day? What is happening on Rudo's timeline? What is this bit? Please share.
This is one of those things that when I can't sleep and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you guys see me tweeting about random stuff, keeping me awake at night is an unanswered question of, why, Rudo?
Why? You don't even know? You don't even know?
No, nobody knows.
I asked him today, why does the bit not include a shirt? Why does it have? I got it when you were in the shower because you don't take showers clothed. But why can't you be clothed everywhere else you go?
Sex sells, guys.
Oh,
you got to
man,
flash
dude.
a little skin.
That's
and,
why that's why my bank account is growing, dude. I'm not buying anything. That's the most sexless post I've ever seen in my life.
I just think that my concern is that he's preparing for a launch into OnlyFans.
Oh my god. We got to keep this moving. We have a super chat for AJ. We have a super
This is what
chat.
the people want to talk about.
Oh, it's from one of our haters, Laking Ball. He says, question for AJ, thoughts on the Bruins season and how would Avs match up in a potential Stanley Cup final?
Yeah,
Is it Boston fan? Is that why? It's why he's always a hater in the chat. This
My-
guy's always a
That's what this
hater.
always say. He's actually our homie.
He is our homie, but he's our homie hater.
A homie hater.
every community has a hater that,
One
they,
guy.
that they embrace. That they're just like, are
Laking
you mad
Ball.
today? You know what? That's comforting to know.
Yeah,
My
Laking Ball
world
is our
is where
homie
it should
hater.
be. No, I think so. The Bruins have been incredible. It's one of the all-time great regular seasons that we've ever seen. I worry that a team that doesn't face serious adversity all season gets punched in the mouth in the playoffs and doesn't handle it well. Where I don't worry about that is that this Bruins team has walked the walk and done everything imaginable. This leadership group has won a cup. They've done everything. They've produced everything. They have elite players at all 3 levels. I would be concerned about the fact that I don't know which goaltender they want to turn to, because when you can get through a regular season in the NHL with an elite tandem, but the every other game stuff with Swayman and Olmark for me is a concern, because in the postseason it's easy to have a guy not have a good game and go to the other guy, but if that guy doesn't have a good game, you don't know what to do then. And now there's uncertainty everywhere. Yeah. And I think that not having the guy to just fall back on and say, this is the guy that's going to solve our problems or whatever, that I think is an extremely vital element to Cup champions, to teams like that. And how do the Avs match up? Right now, not very well. The center depth, JT Compher would get eaten alive by David Krejci. I worry, especially because they just keep trading for really good players, that the bottom six for Boston would chew through what the Avs have right now. I do think the Avs are a little better prepared on paper than some might expect. And I think that those defenses, I think they're probably, if both are healthy, they're the two best defenses in the league. And I would love to see Cale Makar and Charlie McAvoy go head-to-head. I think that would be a great series. If I had to pick today, I would probably pick Boston in that series. But if the Avs do make a move tomorrow or two, then I probably swing back towards the other direction.
I feel about Cale Makar the same way I feel about Yoke, where anytime you tell me, like, it comes down to can Cale Makar out, I'm like, yeah, he will. So, all right, fine. Perfect, sweet. All right.
It's fine.
Good. That's the key. Then we're good.
We talk about Makar this way, but it's kind of funny because Nathan MacKinnon has been one of the 5 most prolific postseason performers in NHL history to this point in his career. And he's been on a different level most of this season. I think that the Stanley Cup win took the pressure off of him and then
oh man, this is so true.
Added an extra layer of motivation to say, I'm going to go get another one so that nobody can ever talk to me about legacy ever again. And I won't be a one-time winner. I won't be a one-hit wonder. It won't be a one-off. I'm going to go and now I'm going to win the Conn Smythe as the postseason MVP for the NHL. Yeah. I'm going to win that because Makar got it last year. And I think he's saying, I'm going to go get that thing this time around, and I'm going to cement my legacy as one of the 10 best centers to ever play the game.
Oh, love it. You hear that? Jokic, I know you're watching. Yeah. Take note.
Well, I mean, it is true. Like, here's the thing. If the Nuggets win the championship this year, I'm immediately, first thing I'm doing is putting a bet down on Jokic MVP next year. For one, he has the same stats. He's had them for the last 3 years. Jokic has played the same game every night, just dominates in the exact same way. He's going to dominate next year. But the confidence of the monkey off your back, this or that, I'm like, oh my God. Jokic might shoot 90% next year.
The freedom of a great player to just be great.
To just be great. No,
and that's where you see what made them great to begin with. Was that internal thing that pushed them. And then the pressure became an element of their career. And then when it comes off of them, watching MacKinnon this year with the pressure off, it's the best he's ever been. He's the most dominant he's ever been. And I think we're getting ready to see maybe one of the all-time great postseason performances from MacKinnon.
I love it.
And that's not to add pressure to him. I'm just saying, if you're on DraftKings and you're looking to try and put a bet in for postseason, like a Nathan MacKinnon Conn Smythe bet, whatever odds you can get for it.
You know what I'm in. You talk me into it, man.
The sooner the better, because he is on a level right now that I think he may never get to again. He's scary.
It's funny you mentioned that. Will you look up his odds? Or I guess you don't have them just yet, huh? You don't have like postseason awards.
Yeah, probably not yet.
Man, I'll be excited for that. I'm going to tell you guys real quick. Breckenridge Brewery and DNVR have teamed up to give some lucky DNVR fans the ultimate game day experience. What is that? VIP tickets, Lexus Club access, parking, DNVR merch, and seats that are incredible. If it's for hockey, guess what? Center ice, 5 rows back from the glass, which I think is perfect. 5 rows right from center, perfect view.
You've never seen an NHL game up close.
What's it like? So fast?
You have no idea how. It's the fastest sport in the world, and it's not close. And everything happens in a whir. Yeah. And what look like really obvious decisions on television, you get a much better feel for the quarter of a second that player had to decide to do something.
And the price for these, look, most people don't get a chance to do this. It's $1 million to sit here typically. That's how much it is for a standard game. It's $1 million for one ticket. We're giving away two tickets, section 102, row 5, as well as all those other things.
Man, we had $2 million that we spent on this for you.
If I won, I would immediately flip those tickets for $500,000.
For $500,000. You also get We also doing this for Nuggets. Nuggets giveaway courtside. So for the Avs, it's coming up next Thursday, a week from today, against the LA Kings. For the Nuggets, it's going to be on the 30th of this month against the New Orleans Pelicans. These are the 2 giveaways. But here's the deal. Today is the last day for the Avs.
Have you sat courtside?
I have. I've sat a couple times for different things. Yeah.
So my wife, my Canadian wife, has never been to an NBA game, and we were watching the Nuggets game last week, and I asked and said 2 weeks ago, and she said, "Have you ever sat courtside?" And I was like, "No." She was like, "I can't figure out what the appeal would be, other than you could just like."
What?
See them like up close. You could like hear
Yeah,
them
that's the
talk
appeal.
and whatever. And
Well,
I was like, cause she's seen a lot of hockey games up close, and I was like, I think it would just be the same. You would get an idea for, because I've never done it, but I think you would get such an amazing feel for the athleticism.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
And like the size
also
and
that,
skill.
and sometimes they like take an inbound pass in front of you, and you're like, should I touch Wilson Chandler?
don't.
Well, I didn't. I didn't. But I thought about it.
Well, real quick, guys, here's how you enter. You head to thednvr.com/Breck Sweeps. To complete the form. Must be 21 or older. The link is in the show description of this one. We'll probably have both of them for Nuggets and Avs. Winners will be selected 1 week. So you have today. This is the last day for the Avs one. If you want to do the Nuggets one, you got a couple weeks, but don't delay. Also, this is one of those ones where I think we got like 1,000, 2,000, something like that. People signed up. It's not a lottery where it's like 1 out of a million chances. You actually have pretty good chances of winning the best seats of your life.
Relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking. Also want to tell you guys we have a new partner here at All City. Do you guys know that? Circle K.
What? The
We have
strange things
Circle-
afoot at the Circle K?
Say some new things here. We're excited to partner with Circle K, your local Circle K, for the best coffee, beer, and snack selection. I didn't realize this was their thing, is that they have like this premium coffee. Circle K, that's where you go. You get the premium
Really?
coffee. You don't want the premium. They also have premium
Suck it,
gas.
Duncan.
And look out for the freebies and giveaways down the road. So if you're going on a long road trip or what have you, find out the nearest Circle K. Stop there. Make them your place. Thanks to Circle K for sponsoring DNVR. Visit the nearest one near you. And then lastly, want to talk about DraftKings. You guys know them, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. They were giving all these great giveaways right now. I've been mentioning that every day on our Nuggets pregame show that we have. I'm getting a free $5 bet. Like if you're on the app, they have the little thing above where it's like opt in. Every single time, it's a win-back bet. So if you make your first bet, you use that coin, and then if you lose, you just get your $5 back. It's free. You absolutely should do it, and use it on a same-game parlay because the odds get bigger. If you have a free bet, you might as well make the odds crazy for whatever it is you're betting on so you could win big. But you bet on hockey. What if we did a Jokic Finals MVP, Nathan McKinnon and Conn Smythe?
Holy smokes.
You probably get like 10 to 1, 20 to 1 odds
Probably
on
get
that.
pretty good odds,
Probably get
yeah.
really good odds. You might even get a Denver versus Boston NBA NHL duo
dude,
you could put
make
a
sure
bet
you
on.
buy whenever you bet, make sure that there's an element of spite involved.
A lot of spite left. So download the app, use promo code DNVR. New customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Use promo code DNVR. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. To round out the show today, guys, I wanted to talk to you guys about how these leagues market themselves.
Yeah.
Eric and I, we complain a lot
Oh,
about the NBA.
about-
You didn't let me finish. You didn't let me finish.
Also the NBA, yeah.
Yeah, also about
I complain about my
everything.
parking spot and the way my back feels.
Oh my god, dude! Parking has become one of
We're,
those things.
we're off. We're getting too far off,
I
guys.
can't, man. I hate it.
The NBA, to me, markets itself around one thing and one thing only, and that is the myth of GOAT.
It's LeBron.
Well, it's the myth of GOAT, meaning who is the best player of all time. And in a void of a best player of all time conversation, that's why it's LeBron, because he's the only guy that like has a realistic and pressing claim to that throne. You know, like
So
maybe,
is he?
huh?
Is he?
I don't know and I don't care. I don't want to get sucked into it. I don't want to get sucked into it. But my point is, he's the only guy. But in the absence of the greatest of all time conversation, the NBA has to fill the void with the greatest of right now, which is the MVP conversation. And it has swallowed up every other conversation that you can have. Right now, you either talk about LeBron James or who's the MVP of the NBA and nothing else. And it's like, getting worse. It's like we're somehow
or you
getting
talk about
worse.
Kyrie because he said something again.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes on occasion you end up talking about those bad things about something some player said that's completely out of pocket. But I think that this is an NBA problem more than anything else. And part of this is that they have made a shift towards social media. And social media, I think, is like, how can I grab your attention in 3-second intervals? And that's easy. Like, LeBron the GOAT? Is he the GOAT? Let's talk about it. Is this make him the GOAT? Is the all-time leading scorer? Is he the GOAT now? Is this it? MVPs. Giannis had 40. Does that mean he's taken over? It's the easiest way to grab someone's attention.
I think my favorite has been watching former players who hated social media when they played
Right. Have to embrace it. And
go into media jobs.
Yeah,
After
yeah.
they hated the media, they go into media jobs,
They're
go
the new
on
media.
camera, and say some inflammatory things just because that's what they are now paid to do.
Draymond is are you talking about Draymond here? Because here's the thing. Draymond had given some thoughtful answers early
Perkins.
on, but here's the problem. You start to get sponsors, you have a contract, you need to go on 2 times a week, and it's like, oh, wow, this is actually hard. Let me say something incendiary because I have nothing left to talk about, so I'll start to just ratchet up my takes. Draymond to me is example A, but I want to keep this moving in this way. That's how the NBA talks about itself first and foremost. We'll get into other things, other problems down the line. What does the NHL talk about?
Connor McDavid.
So it's the same thing, greatest of the generation.
Yeah, I mean, for 15 years, it was Crosby versus Ovechkin.
Okay.
You had 2 foundational players in the same conference in cities that were close to each other that played in the postseason every year. You know, the one of the greatest centers of all time against one of the maybe, for my money, the greatest goal scorer of all time in Ovechkin. And head to head, they just kept playing each other. And so it created that natural, like, okay. And then the league was like, this is all we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Crosby versus Ovechkin. And then now it's switched a little bit to what's Connor McDavid up to every single night, and it's mostly just Connor McDavid.
Does it swallow up the discourse in a bad way? The way that I am
It does
portraying
not.
the NBA?
Mostly because he is so dominant that he runs away with the MVP, and everybody's just like,
Well, what are you going to do?
cool. Let's talk about who's actually going to win the Stanley Cup. Because the MVP in the NHL is revered, but not in the same way that it is in the NBA, where in the NHL, the Stanley Cup is, it's the chalice of the gods. It's what every kid dreams of, that nobody grows up dreaming of lifting the Larry O'Brien trophy.
Nope.
The Stanley Cup has its own aura about it. It's the only championship trophy in North American sports that does. And it is the epicenter of the hockey world. And I think that is one thing that I like about it, is that we talk about the Stanley Cup, we talk about lifting it. I mean, we talk about what's the order.
Yeah.
Cale Makar was the 14th player to lift the Stanley Cup last year.
That's
after the Avs won
hilarious.
it. And the fact that we know that tells you, 1, that we counted, and 2, we care about that. Like it's just a different conversation, but it is on the larger league-wide level. It starts with Connor McDavid.
Does that generate from ESPN?
I would say no, but with ESPN involved in it, they've leaned into it.
Man,
But one thing I do like is that ESPN has regularly, their Twitter account, their social medias, have not been shy about leaning into, okay, we're now a hockey property.
Yeah.
And every night you see cool highlights getting sent out.
Well,
And it's not just Connor McDavid. It's, Cale Makar just did a thing. They sent out a Dennis Malgin thing the other day. When he scored a cool goal against Calgary, they immediately, it was like 4 seconds later, tweeted that thing out. So,
yeah, that's amazing.
That's bait.
Antonio, Bronco Tiz thinking the Lombardi Trophy is more greater than the Stanley Cup. Yeah, I mean, there is just like sort of a media issue that happens anytime you have an old growth media conglomerate like MTV or the Shopping Network or E-Entertainment, these places that have been around for a long time. And when you exist for a long time, you have to continually bring new things and sort of change, even though you don't. But this is like how it works when you have a lot of people that work at a place that are every day coming to work trying to figure out new things. Like MTV completely lost its way right? Like they completely lost their ways. They started to become, with the real world, they saw something work, then it's Teen Mom and all this stuff. Now they never play music. ESPN started off as just like the place you got your source of news. And like then they started to really lean into with like more voices and like a desire to widen their appeal. They actually watered it down so horribly because they leaned so heavily into the narrative side of sports.
They became as important as the sports to themselves.
Yes.
And then it was like, let's embrace debate. This is better than watching the game. Let's listen to these two guys argue.
Because yes, you can generate something from nothing, and also
Right.
it just sort of like it becomes it's unsolvable. All of these the greatest thing about sports, in my view, and I think what people who actually like sports, is that at the end of the day you have a debate and there's a right answer. You're
Right,
like,
right.
I think they're the best. They're like, oh, they lost. They weren't the best.
Right.
All of the MVP, the GOAT, there's no right answer. And so it goes on in perpetuity and it
Right.
gets people fired up. It's like the way the politics work. You pick the 6 topics that are unsolvable on the planet. And then you just like, when it's time to get people riled up, you're like, bum, 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 bum. Who wants to talk about abortion? You're like, oh, I guess let's talk, whatever.
Yeah.
Like this is what ESPN does. It just brings people like the MVP conversation brings the boys to the yard. So they're all about it. They like hit it heavy and they like dilute and lose the sports part of it, which is like for people who like sports, it's like becomes so deeply offensive to watch ESPN. It's like,
Right.
it's sacrilegious. It is, it just is like the way that like I don't know, like your disinterested sister wants to talk about sports.
Well, here's something for you, Eric, that I'm kind of curious about. And I shared an article on Twitter the other day from Stratechery, which is a very good like tech media company, like tech in the future of tech media outlet blog. And it was talking about the RSN decline, but it was really talking about the bundling of cable packages. And here's the thing. I think the last 20 years, and the NBA and the NHL are in the same boat in that I feel like their audience is becoming more and more niche. And I wonder if it's like the NHL's always been that way. It's always been like you're a diehard hockey fan. But the NBA is increasingly becoming like you're an NBA fan and nothing else, or you're nothing. And here's what I wonder. The last 20 years with social media, the internet, and everything else, it's easier to find more of the things you like while almost forcing you to become less diverse in your interests. Cable bundling is this on steroids because you used to have ESPN Disney and you subscribed to a cable package and you got all these channels, most of which you didn't want, but you still had this or that. And so you ate from the buffet line. Now you have Disney Plus, and everything got so fragmented that I almost feel like the casual people that used to have one toe in ESPN just because it was part of the bundle abandoned that. I just got Star Wars, and that's what I do. And now sports becomes like I'm just a sports guy, so I just watch ESPN. And I almost feel like these two things have surprisingly become like, oh no, I'm for the diehard obsessive people that are into this type of thing and can debate it all the time. But it's not for anybody else, be it it's losing that appeal.
Yeah,
I
man.
see this as one of the weird parts that has gone on that's involved the internet, social media, cable bundling, and all of these things that have.
I told you my theory on this, and in that the NBA specifically, and you tell me how this works in the NHL, AJ, but the NBA has completely punted on our generation. They do not care at all about catering to the way that we have consumed the product, think about the product, and want to talk about the product. They have fully, they've realized like they have lost the battle in our generation to the NFL, and there's no gaining ground. That's it. Like the NFL is king. You'll hear a million times. But what they have done, and what a lot of things like when I was growing up, like they've really focused on the youth, like meeting the next generation of fans where they are at, talking to them the way that they talk about everything. And that the hope is through that they will get people invested in the sport and then later on get them interested in the game itself. This is the way that baseball was with baseball cards when I was a kid. Like baseball cards were way more important to me than actual baseball. I knew baseball cards to a kid is like it's like a kid economy. Like you buy something and it's like worth more than you bought it for. It's like we're worth $1, and like you're looking up, you're like, oh my god, who's Kirby Puckett? I love this guy. It's worth $1. It's whatever. It's like, and it teaches you how to have value in these players. And then for me, it's like that was my starting point. We didn't have a baseball team, and then I grew to understand and know these players. And then as I got older, I started to appreciate the sport itself. And I think that their plan is like, okay, we're not we're not getting people to come over. They find it obnoxious. But like, if we can really focus in on the next generation, and they're proving this out, like they outpace every league in Instagram followers by like double the NBA does. It's then the strategy of like, and this is why they don't give a shit about RSNs, because RSNs is for a TV generation. That's us. They don't care about us anymore. They're like, we're not going to lose any more money. We're not going to worry about it. Like, these guys are going to do whatever they do. And then when the next generation comes, there's probably not going to be TV networks in the same way that we think about it now. Probably a lot of it is going to happen online exclusively anyway. And so it's like, we're already at the center of that in people's hearts, minds, and their behavior. And so to me, it's like they're just like, well, you know, like our time is not now, but our time is coming, which is why David Silver or Adam Silver can be like so, you know, blasé about a question asked of him at the All-Star game, you know, like, what do you think of these RSN debacles? He's like, you know, like long term, I'm not that worried. Short term, I'm not that worried, but we'll figure it out. And it should be like, what do you mean you're not worried about the people getting your games? Like, that should be the only thing you care about, is like getting your product to people. But like, they don't even see it that way. They're like, this generation is going to peter out, and then we're going to start fresh and new.
Yeah. What leagues market themselves well? What pro sports leagues?
F1.
F1?
Yeah.
Formula One?
Yeah.
How do they market themselves?
Well, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's 20 drivers, it's 10 teams. It's a lot smaller, so it's really easy to dive in.
But it's storyline. That's what you're saying. Is like,
Well,
there's a story to every team.
Yeah, and just there's so many different entry points to it. You know, you have a Netflix series, which has caused the popularity of it to explode.
Yep.
But you also have so many different aspects. You know, you can care about the race, but you also have to care about the little things are so important. You know, the strategy of it,
Right.
And then which team manages tires best,
Right.
You know, which team has the fastest car, which team has the right strategy on when to pit and when not, and how many pit stops are they're going to have in a race, and then can their driver execute it? And you know, there's so many different layers to Formula One. And then you have the big personalities. You have the interpersonal drama. You have a Netflix series that gives you access to the paddock, where you can actually watch them have these conversations with their, their off season of drivers signing with new teams. Happens in the middle of the year, and they're like, well, I'm like, imagine another sport. Like, imagine at the end of a year, you have a big free agent, and it would have been like last year when the Avs had Nazem Kadri, except Nazem Kadri signs with the Calgary Flames in December, but plays the rest of the year with the Avalanche.
Right.
And then when it gets done, he's like, happy times, bye everybody.
Right.
Like, I'm off to Calgary. Like, it's so different and so, like, it's so weird.
Long form storytelling is really important though too, and you're right, player movement and this stuff. But I do think there's just something to like, let me tell you a story that takes you a little bit of time. So I can't tell this to you in 5 seconds. I can't tell you in 10 minutes, but I can tell it to you over the course of a season. And I do think that the NBA has gotten away from that at the national level.
Yeah, but I just think they are planting the seeds for the next storylines. Like the long-term storylines are coming. The long-term story that they are putting a period on and closing up is the LeBron story.
But you got
the LeBron era.
But you do have to also hire the right people to tell those stories.
For sure.
And I think that ESPN has been a bad part. I think Turner has been a very good one, and I think ESPN has been a very bad one in that one regard. And that'll be something to kind of follow.
It's kind of the reverse for the NHL right now, where Turner has been a really rough partner for them so far.
Really?
And ESPN, lots of faults, lots of problems, but ESPN has done, I think, overall, I think it's been a boon to the league.
Yeah. NBC was great
So
at this too,
far.
by the way. Like NBC used to have inside stuff. They would have like the great lead-ins, the great Bob Costas narrating and telling you the gravity of a Saturday or Sunday game or whatever. And I just think that is an important thing. And I don't think this is why I disagree with you, D-Line, about the NBA strategy. I don't think it is. I think they're clearly going towards social media, and some of those things you said are true. But this idea that they have a master plan that will pay off, I don't think that part is true, because I think that they are taking the most money they can get right now and it is actually a little bit of a like, what is it? Well, the line Mark Cuban used to describe the NFL is actually true of the NBA, where he said pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered, and that's why the NFL's they're sneaky on the decline right now. I think he actually mistook that. The NBA might be the one that became the hogs by accepting the like, yeah, we'll take the ESPN grab bag of money. We want this TV money. Now the players make more, the owners make more, the valuations are through the roof. They might actually be the hogs in this scenario. And that's that's
I don't know.
where
To me, it's just that they have an eye on the future. Like I just don't know any other way. Like to be in the places that they're in, it tells me that is what they're focused on.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
we shall see.
isn't it also like problematic that we have so much access to everything all the time that
Yeah,
we're
like this
always-
is
well, and we're
our
always
second
wanting-
goddamn podcast of the day.
Like we're always wanting like more. Like we want to see more behind this. Like we have more behind the scenes knowledge than we've ever had of any sport ever, and it's an insatiable appetite for information where there's never enough, and so we always want to get deeper into things. And so that's why when you talk about long form storytelling, I think there's a reason Drive to Survive resonates with formula with people who don't watch the sport on a regular basis, because they can get into it and it's something that they can connect with, and it shows them parts of the sport that they would never have otherwise gotten to. Otherwise, you would think that I'm just going to sit down and watch a race every Sunday.
Yep.
You don't care
Yep.
about any of the drama. You don't
Yep.
care about anything else that
Exactly.
could be going on in the sport. But that allows you. That's where I think the long form storytelling. I would kill to have a Drive to Survive in the NHL, but one that followed each team.
Well, maybe
Because imagine you have a championship team. Imagine you won a Stanley Cup last year.
Right.
And I could go back and watch 10 episodes
Right.
of
How it
hardcore,
happened, yeah.
deep dive, long form,
hard ice.
long form storytelling
checks.
of a championship season that you want to remember.
That's 100% it. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. The Rapid Show is up next, but this was a great discussion. You guys can check the great AJ Haefele always on the DNVR Avalanche podcast, and of course me and D-Line on DNVR Nuggets. And this is the Denver Sports Podcast. We have different hosts, different guests every single week. So if it's your first time tuning in, make it a weekly appearance here. It's always a good show to follow along, and it helps you dip your toes into some of the other ones.
Ooh,
Speaking
my
of
toes are
dipping your
soaking.
toes into other sports, Colorado Rapids just started their season, and they're getting ready to go live right here. So if you want to check out what the latest is on them, or maybe not go back to the latest, go to the future. Don't go to last
Don't
week.
worry-
Go
don't
to
worry
this
about last
upcoming week, man.
Why are we talking about old stuff,
Let's
man?
not talk about old stuff. Let's talk
Why
about
are we
where
talking
they're
about some
going.
old stuff?
Let's talk about where they're going. We'll see you guys then.
Bye.